Well, you went way over your time, but the production during that time is amazing, and we're all very grateful for your talk. No, I mean, it was worth it, absolutely worth it. I want to just do a little housekeeping and advise that the Deputy Chief of Mission from the Embassy of Afghanistan is here, Ahmad Fakiri. Please stand. And also the Economic Officer, Abid Amiri is here. And I would like to introduce the moderator for our next panel. It is Vice President and Executive Committee of our Board of Directors, Jeff Grieco. Jeff will be the moderator for Panel 2. Jeff has had a distinguished career. I'm sorry, panel. So much time has transpired that I thought it was time for Panel 2. Anyway, Jeff has had a distinguished career in the private sector. He came to USAID with the Bush administration, served for 8 years as Director of Communications for USAID, and he will moderate the panel on national and international organizations' perspectives on ICT in Afghanistan and its regional possibilities. Jeff? And can we get our panelists in Panel 1 to the table? Thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to just mention that the minister, for those of you who are heading for the exits, the minister will be respondent to the individual panels, and we felt that that would be a more robust way of integrating the ministry and its works with the other panelists. And then we'll go to Q&A after that interaction takes place. Thank you.
Okay, if we could have the panelists come up on stage, I'll do a little quick housekeeping first. As Don reminded us during the minister's presentation, please turn off your cell phones. I sat there and turned mine off as soon as his went off, so it's okay. Membership. So we just want to make a small plug. We're a volunteer organization, and we really feel a lot of organizations that are here today, you're here today, and we appreciate your contribution. But what we'd like to try to do is to make sure you grab a membership form on the way out, which is on the registration table. And please join us. We are planning to do a whole host of new activities coming up this year, all private sector focused, private sector led growth focused for Afghanistan. So we'd really appreciate it if you join. Each of the panelists is expected to do a short presentation. David Begg has most of the PowerPoints, if there is a PowerPoint that they're going to be using. We are going to put the copies of the presentations on our website, so you don't need to worry about taking copious notes during the presentations. And we will try to get those up if we can by tomorrow, close the business. All the comments of the panelists are on the record. Unless the panelists would like to go off the record for any specific comments, we will do that and honor that. The minister will be responding following each of the all the presentations, and then we'll open it up for Q&A from you in the audience. So our panel is Perspectives of National and International Institutions and Organizations. We did move Robert Kinn and DOD to the panel 3, and Robert, who is a real pioneer in telecom development, ICT development in Afghanistan, on behalf of the Department of Defense, is going to be moderating and discussing on that third panel. So don't think that we left DOD off the panel today. Our panel 2? Is it panel 2? Okay. He's moderating panel 3 in addition. Okay, so we gave him extra time. So we're going to provide each speaker with about 5 to 10 minutes for their presentations, and then we'll open it up for a quick response from the minister as a respondent. Be sure, if I could ask you one thing out of the conference today that you do, is to take everything that you're hearing, and I think the minister's presentation was extremely powerful in the amount of progress that Afghanistan has made. And nothing means more, I know, to our troops that have served there so admirably, and to all of the sacrifice of the Afghan people, than being able to start talking finally about Afghanistan's great successes. And this is a true success, and we hope that you'll carry this message on to your own professional networks, your own personal networks, and expand the audience for what's happening in Afghanistan now. So without further ado, we're going to start right here with Samuel. And let me just very quickly, their bios are already on the table out back, and I think everybody has them. Mr. Tumiwa is with the Asian Development Bank's North American Representative Office here in Washington, where he's the Deputy Regional Director. He works with the governments in the United States and Canada, as well as private sector, academic, and civil society organizations. And we're very proud to have him here today. Following him will be Mr. Takeuchi. He is the Chief Representative at the Japan International Cooperation Agency's Washington, USA office. And he'll be before coming to Washington, he worked at JICA headquarters in Tokyo, working on Latin America and Caribbean programming. Following him will be Mara Burr. Mara is the Deputy Assistant USTR, U.S. Trade Representative for South and Central Asian Affairs. Ms. Burr served as the Deputy Assistant U.S. Trade Representative for Environmental and Natural Resources from 2004 to 2010. She's been in the South and Central Asia Affairs Office since 2010 herself, and she's responsible for Afghanistan, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, the region as a whole. Following her is Mr. Sudan, and Randeep Sudan is the Sector Manager of the ICT Sector Unit at the World Bank, based here in Washington, D.C. His unit supports developing countries that are working on ICT policies, programs related to both broadband infrastructure, mobile networks, digital services, basic ICT industry development, and he's representing, they wanted me to make sure I said this, he's representing the whole World Bank group here today. MIGA and the bank itself, they've all got different activities that they're doing in the ICT sector, and we're very honored that he's here to kind of represent everybody and give us that presentation. Last but not least is David Bailey. David's from USAID, and he's going to be representing the Afghanistan-Pakistan office and giving us some round-out comments today at the end of the panel discussion. So I'll leave it up to the panelists. We have a handheld mic, or you're welcome to come on up here with the clicker and use it yourself. It's up to you. And we'll start with our first presentation.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for having the Asian Development Bank here. We're very honored to be here. We're very active in Afghanistan, and I've myself worked on the transmission line to bring electricity from Uzbekistan to Pulikumri and then the transmission line down. So I had a little bit of experience there in 2003, 2004, 2005. So it's been a long time since I've been in Afghanistan, but it's very nice to be in this company. Actually, my regional director, Craig Stephenson, is the one that would usually do this because he has been country director for ADB twice in Afghanistan, but he's away discussing climate change in Jamaica. So that's why I'm here deputing for him. But ADB has been very, very active in the region, I said, and mainly in infrastructure. We've done a lot in energy, water, transport, and both on the public sector side and on the private sector side. We actually have not done a lot in telecommunications. In fact, we don't do much in telecommunications in the region at all because, as a development bank, a lot of what we're doing, a lot of what we're investing in should be in the areas where the private sector will not come in. Our job is to work in new areas, crowd in the private sector financing. But we've had several one investment 3 times over with Roshan Telecommunications that I wanted to share and perhaps dig a little bit deeper into and tell you that story, because I think it's a very good example of exactly what the minister was talking about, the impact of telecommunications on the development process and all the things that have happened there. And so perhaps I'll spend a few minutes just to tell you about that investment on our side. Our investment was approved in 2004 when ADB approved phase 1 for the substantial network expansion for Roshan. After decades of conflict and devastation in Afghanistan, it had a very challenging situation with telecommunications, as the minister said. Penetration for fixed line at the time was about 0.08%. For mobile phones, it was like 1.2%, and for satellite phones, it was 1%. So it was a good time for us to make that investment. Roshan approached ADB with a request for a medium-term debt facility to allow it to accomplish its expansion program. So we did a debt facility. We also did a political risk guarantee facility and brought in several other investors. So as a lead investor, we also brought in Proparco from France. We brought in DEG from Japan, and Alcatel brought in some vendor financing. So we brought in other investments to go into this. prior to receiving the ADB assistance, Roshan had financed its own startup, its initial rollout through shareholder funds, but it was very limited, so it's just really starting at the time before this round of financing. And we went through 3 rounds of financing with Roshan. The first round we did was for 35 million, second round again for 35 million, fourth round for 60 million. And I think they've gone for a fourth round of financing, but this time with the World Bank Group's IFC. And so, together we've continued to finance Roshan. Just a few points that I wanted to delve into and get into some details. I think there are perhaps 4 or 5 highlights about this investment, which makes it a good story. Number one was that the fact that when we made the investment and we made a case to our board, we made it on these points. First one is fostering competition. The introduction of Roshan in Afghanistan fostered increased competition. Before the launch of Roshan, there were only 2 operators. There was the Afghan Telecom and AACC, AWCC at the time had very little competition in the mobile market, and because of this competition, we think that it improved the performance of both telecoms companies. At the time when the investment was first made, the national tariffs was about 30 cents per minute in 2003, and it's gone down to 0.09 cents by 2011 and 3 cents by 0.3 cents currently. So, because of the increased competition, this was one of the good impacts of our investment. Because of the expansion of Roshan, it's increased the reach to 34 provinces, to all 34 provinces, and covers about 60% of the population, in line with what the minister had said earlier. And so that's something else that we think has happened. It helped to modernize and expand the telecommunication network in Afghanistan, and that's a very good point. Our investment in Roshan also allowed for 3 development activities that had not taken place in the past. Number one was telemedicine. Roshan was part of the Aga Khan group, and so the use of the mobile network allowed for hospitals, doctors in Kabul, as well as rural hospitals in Bamiyan, to get more experienced staff at the Aga Khan University Hospital in Karachi to diagnose different problems via telecommunications and therefore provide better health care. We also, the program also resulted in innovations in pro-poor solutions. So, for example, the picture that was so good about people going to Pakistan to get, one of the things that Roshan did was to partner up with a microfinance bank to set up little stalls where people could, where the public phones and people could leave messages for people in the community. It also allowed for farmers to get real-time information on agriculture markets throughout the world. It also contributed to the local skills development. Roshan continues to Afghanize key positions in the company, and in 2012 identified 70 national staff to be enrolled in formal mentorship and training programs. Since 2009, Afghan national staff in manager and above positions have grown from approximately 40 people to 90 people. About 65% of the total managers in Roshan are now Afghani. And from our point of view, the additionality we brought to the project, the fact that provided debt financing, we provided political risk guarantee, brought in some other financiers into the project, has resulted in others seeing that the market is possible, providing some confidence for the market, and therefore more private investment going into the telecommunications sector in Afghanistan. So that's our story, and we wanted to share and hope that we continue to look for opportunities to expand the investments in Afghanistan at this time, and I look forward to the discussion afterward. Thank you very much.
Mr. Takeuchi will go next.
Okay. Your Excellency, President Donlita, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to explain about our activity or Japan's activity towards the development of Afghanistan. Well, not necessarily in the field of the telecommunication, but the Japanese government is quite actively engaging the development of Afghanistan. So today I'd like to touch briefly about the current status of Afghanistan, and then I'd like to explain what we are doing. Okay. Now we have a kind of mixed signal. One is about improvement of macro status. For example, the GDP or the fiscal revenue. When it comes to the GDP, at the time of 2001, it was about 153, and after 10 years, 2011, it's quadrupled, it's about 600. And on the other hand, there are some challenging, especially the social indicators, like Human Development Index. Of course, it is improving, but still, in case of Human Development Index, it's 175th out of 186 countries. And also, about only half of the population can receive or have access to the safe water. This is a kind of challenging social indicators. And looking at the sector share of the GDP, like you see in the left side orange part, the majority is done by the services. These services are mainly consumed by the foreigners, including the foreign military services. So naturally, we think that in the time of decreasing military existence or the foreign assistance toward Afghanistan, this part will be shrinking. And the second part is shared by agriculture. And we think that agriculture is a very important sector. Actually, this is a three donuts graph. The inner side is 2002, the middle is 2005, the outer circle is 2010. So you can see the changing. And thinking about the agriculture growth is mainly dependent on the weather condition. So every year it's changed. The bar, the blue bar is about the agriculture growth. Every year it changed from plus to minus. And according to that plus to minus, the total growth rate, which is in the line, really differs. So one of the main issues is to make it a little bit normalized. And so now what are we doing? Well, generally, Japanese assistance goal is to support Afghanistan's self-reliance and prevent the country from slipping back into the hotbed of terrorism. I just got this from the homepage of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, so this is a kind of Japanese total goal. And as to the achievement, from 2001, we have been providing 5.4 billion US dollars for assistance. And in the meantime, and for the future, in July 2012, at the Tokyo Conference on Afghanistan, Japan now announced $3 billion US dollars of assistance for over 5 years, starting from 2012. So we are now working on this period. And there are three pillars of assistance of the Japanese government. The first one is to support for enhancing Afghanistan's capacity to maintain security. Mainly, we are doing a training of the policemen, and also we are providing a part of the salary of the police, and so that the number of police can increase. And the second one is assistance for reintegration, yes, of ex-combatants. Mainly, this means the vocational training, and we are providing fund for the vocational training body. And third one, underlined one, is assistance for the Afghanistan sustainable and self-reliance development. This is what JICA we do. JICA, as some of you may know, is a Japanese governmental body dealing with foreign assistance. We have loan or grant or technical assistance for our hand for the assistance. And for Afghanistan, we have technical assistance and grant assistance. And we are very much focusing on the support of the really basics of the society to realize the self-reliance of the community. And we have three main areas of the focus. The first one is this one, agriculture and rural development. The main source of growth, yes, As we see in the donuts graph, we understand that agriculture is a very important sector. So we are providing technical assistance for rice-based agriculture or irrigation, capacity development, etc. The second area of our focus is infrastructure. And left-hand side is a picture of the Kabul, very much congested. And so we have a Kabul International Metropolitan Area Development Program. But this is not done only by the Japanese government or us. This is really a result, a joint effort of international community, including USAID. And other than that, we have a project for the road construction or airport rehabilitation, water supply, capacity development. Well, back to this Kabul issue, there are three major issues about the development of the Kabul. And the first one is a very high population growth. It was, the population was about 2 million in 1999, but 10 years later, it became more than double, 4.5 million. And in 2025, we are expecting it to become 9 million. So you can see the congestion. And the second issue is about geographical difficulty. It is a mountainous place. And the third difficulty is the scarcity of the water resources. So we need to provide some kind of water supply project. And the third focus of our operation is health and education. And yes, for the sustainable and independent development, I think improving the health condition and education is very much important. We are doing tuberculosis control, reproductive health, literacy improvement, teacher education, etc. Yeah, for example, the literacy rate of age 15 is about 26%, and only 34% of the population finished elementary school. So there are still a lot of work to be done. And for this area, I think, as Minister precisely mentioned, that there's a good opportunity for the ICT to be played. Oops. And lastly, some other issues for the further development. Again, as Minister correctly mentioned, there's a good possibility of the regional development or the collaboration with surrounding countries. With this, I think there's a possibility for further development of Afghanistan. I also heard that the name of the New Silk Road Initiative. I'm not sure whether how is it developed, but those kind of initiative might be a kind of solution. And next one is about the ICT. Well, this is already well explained by the minister, but actually I'm very much surprised. As I was introduced, I'm sorry, but I'm not an expert of Afghanistan, but I'm a Latin American expert. But when I checked this for the presentation, I was really, really amazed because only 14% of the population has access to the electricity. But while more than 90% of the population has already access to the telecommunication, this is quite a success. Yes. And well, from that time on, I think there are a bunch of possibilities like some other countries using ICT for education or social things. So I think this is a really, really promising area. And lastly, maybe this is a matter of course, but security issue. Well, before I came here, I did several interviews to a Japanese company, and they said that, well, they understand there's a possibility or that there is a kind of promising area, but they, at the same time, they are looking at the security situation. And well, frankly speaking, at this moment, they are a little bit cautious about that. Okay, that is my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very good, thank you. I'm thinking of some great questions for the follow-ups, and now we'll head over to Mara Burr from U.S. Trade Representative.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank the Afghan-American Chamber. I want to thank Don Ritter for asking me to come today, and to all of those in the audience that I've worked with and had great conversations about Afghanistan. It's nice to see everyone today. I work for the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative, and we focus mostly on trade and investment policy. So rather than on the more ground level conditions about investments in the ICT sector, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the policies and the foundational work that's going on right now to create the enabling conditions to allow for greater investment in information and communication technology and to allow those investments to grow and to thrive. I work in South Asia, so I can use this quote a lot. This is one of my favorites. George Bernard Shaw said, people see the world the way it is and say why. I see a world that never was and say why not. In South Asia, you have to say why not a lot, because there are a lot of reasons why things won't work. There are a lot of reasons why you shouldn't do things. But I find that the more you talk to people who are willing to put in the extra effort and actually have a vision, it really is why not? Why can't we do these things? And I was so impressed by the minister's presentation because I don't think anyone in 2001 would have predicted the slides that he was showing us this afternoon. And I think that's incredible. So as I said, we focus on trade and investment policies. We focus on the rule of law, and we look at the foundational aspects in a country that allows the enabling environment to have greater trade and investment. We've worked quite closely with the government of Afghanistan over the last few years, and my good friend Shakib Nouri is somewhere. I think maybe he left to get a coffee, or I'm not sure, but Shakib and I spent many, many hours talking about how to improve trade and investment in Afghanistan, how to work cooperatively to make things better on the ground for everyone. And that's important because you need that engagement on a daily basis to make real change. So we're looking at rule of law, looking at education, investment in people, women and men. It is all too often that countries do not focus on the entire population and create opportunities for women and men. You can't disregard 50% of your population and hope to grow or thrive or succeed, especially in South and Central Asia. It is just not possible. If you look at the numbers, I know there's some question about the population in Afghanistan. Pakistan, approximately 180 million people. India, 1.2 billion. Bangladesh, 160 million people. Many of those three economies in particular, especially Bangladesh and India, a good portion of their economy is based on women workers, on women entrepreneurs. The ready-made garment sector in Bangladesh, for example, over 4 million women work in the garment sector in Bangladesh. It's a huge driver of the economy. And if women are not included in opportunities and decision-making, those opportunities will be lost, and they will be taken by countries in the region that want to exploit those opportunities and grow their economy. So it's really a matter of competition, it's a matter of common sense, and will we work toward making the enabling conditions for greater trade and investment possible? You need rule of law. You have to have a functioning system of law that is understandable, transparent, and effective. Effective in that when disputes arise, there is a functioning way to settle those disputes in a manner that is timely and not abhorrently costly to the private sector. There needs to be infrastructure, and the Honorable Minister talked about the infrastructure that's being built in the ICT sector, but there needs to be more infrastructure. There need to be roads, there needs to be connectivity. We see that throughout the region. There's very little connectivity between Central Asia and South Asia. Has anyone tried to go from Astana to Dhaka or from Kathmandu to Astana? Good luck. It takes as long to go from Kathmandu to Astana as it does to go from Washington to Doha or Washington to Dubai. It's astonishing. The connectivity is not there in the region. And if that connectivity is built, if the infrastructure is built, you will see the region take off. If the barriers to trade and investment are lowered and removed, you will see the connectivity take off. One exciting area that I'd like to focus on briefly is the great work of Afghanistan in working to accede to the World Trade Organization. The government of Afghanistan has made huge progress in its accession, and I had the great honor in January of this year to sign our bilateral accession protocols. Those bilateral accession protocols for the WTO included goods, services, and agriculture. And I bring up services in particular because you need to look at the services commitments Afghanistan has made in their accession package, because that will allow you, if you want to invest in information and communication technologies and in the services, you need to look at the commitments Afghanistan's made and what will happen upon accession. The other important thing that happens upon accession to the World Trade Organization is that there are commitments from other WTO members. There are access to other markets that have been negotiated through the WTO process. This is also opening up more opportunities for Afghan businesses and for businesses from outside that want to invest in Afghanistan. It opens up access to Pakistan. It opens up access to India. These are important things for a growing and developing country like Afghanistan. The last thing I'll touch upon, excuse me, in June of 2013, I had the great honor to be in Kabul to sign our Memorandum of Understanding on Women's Economic Empowerment. This is the first MOU of its kind that USTR signed. We signed one just last month with Pakistan, so let us not say that we do not strive to tackle difficult issues. And I think it's important that through this MOU, we work on connecting women businesses and open up that venue to help grow Afghanistan. And one interesting thing that we've been able to do is connect a U.S. women-owned, women-led marketing company that will help develop webinars on Marketing 101 for women entrepreneurs in Afghanistan. And working with our State Department and USAID colleagues, we will translate those into Dari and Pashto. So it'll be an online web platform to teach women how to do marketing. This is very exciting stuff. And I hope, and I'm gonna ask my good friend Don, that we can create some space in Kabul, Dubai, and Washington to focus on women's economic development and promoting connectivity between women-owned businesses. Thank you very much.
It's exciting stuff. And you want to come on up here, Mr. Sudan? All right. Our guest from the World Bank, Mr. Randeep Sudan.
A very good afternoon to all of you, and thanks to the Afghan-American Chamber of Commerce for inviting me here. And it's indeed a privilege to be here with Your Excellency and talk about ICT, because the World Bank has been very much part of the ICT story in Afghanistan, and we are very proud and privileged to have been a part of this exciting journey. So, as far as the World Bank is concerned, we are three institutions which are playing a key role. One is, of course, the IBRD, which is normally what we understand as the World Bank. And we also have IFC, which is the private sector investment arm of the bank. And we have MIGA, which provides guarantees to governments. So in the case of Afghanistan, we actually have been working together on some of the critical issues and opportunities in the telecom sector. So we have two projects which we started, the first one in 2003, which was the Afghanistan Emergency Communications Development Project. And then we have another project, a subsequent project, which is the ICT Sector Development Project. So through the first project, we were investing about $22 million, and the second project is $50 million, and we are focusing a lot on the promotion of broadband infrastructure, improving mobile penetration, trying to mainstream ICTs into different ministries, and also in terms of developing IT skills in the country. On the IFC side, we've had two investments. So one is in MTN, and that was $60 million, and there was also an investment in Roshan for $65 million. And these have been complemented by MIGA guarantees. So we have quite a holistic package in terms of our activities in Afghanistan. When we look back at where we were when we started, and we look to what we are, where we are today, it certainly is something which we are extremely proud of, and certainly Minister Sangin has a lot to be very, very proud of. So today, if you look at the ICT sector, it contributes, the telecom sector itself contributes about 8% of GDP. It contributes to 10% of government revenues, and about 100,000 jobs directly and indirectly, which is a significant contribution of the sector. Plus, this sector is growing and thriving. We have 80%, or in fact, close to 90% now in terms of mobile coverage, and we are seeing a rollout of 3G, and hopefully, as we go forward, we will be getting onto 4G and more high bandwidth technologies. Now, one thing which not many people know about Afghanistan, and which we are really proud in the bank, is that Afghanistan is one of the first countries in the world to actually have a policy on cross-sector infrastructure sharing. In fact, that policy, which Afghanistan has cleared through its cabinet, has become a role model for other countries in the world. And the World Bank is actually engaged on a piece where we are trying to see how we can encourage infrastructure sharing in other parts of the world, and learning very much from the experience in Afghanistan. So that's one area where Afghanistan has really done extremely well. Another area where Afghanistan has done very well is in terms of mobile platforms. Typically what happens is that when government services are rolled out, they are rolled out on mobile phones, but it is not done in a unified, structured, and holistic way. In the case of Afghanistan, in fact, one of the components is to establish a mobile platform and use that to integrate across government and then deploy services, which is again quite innovative, and it is something which we are encouraging in other countries. The third area where, in fact, a number of countries are learning from Afghanistan is in the area of using mobile phones for real-time information gathering and feedback. So just to give an example, there are investments which the bank is making in irrigation, and to be able to monitor what is happening on those irrigation projects becomes very difficult and challenging. But now that we have mobile phones and they are geo-referenced, so you can take a phone, just take a photograph, send it across, and integrate it as part of an information system, which actually gives you a very good insight into what is happening on the ground, which I think, again, is something that experience is very valuable to other developing countries. So we are proud of the fact that Afghanistan has entered into areas where it is becoming a leader, and it is demonstrating leadership in a very tangible way. While I was listening to Minister Sangin when he was just closing his talk, unfortunately I should have come earlier. I did not realize that I would have the opportunity of listening to you, Minister, while you were explaining the priorities. I was impressed by what you spoke about jobs. So when we look towards the future from the World Bank, I think there are clear opportunities which could possibly be leveraged and which we should be strategically thinking of when we think of Afghanistan. Now, before joining the World Bank in 2005, I used to work in India. I was a civil servant belonging to the Indian Administrative Service, and I was working as the Special Secretary to the Chief Minister in a state called Andhra Pradesh. And that was a state which at that point in time, in 95, when I first joined the Chief Minister's office, was not having enough electricity. It was having problem of funding. 98% of state revenues were going into salaries, so there was hardly anything left for development. But there was a visionary leader who started thinking in a very sort of innovative and very ambitious and audacious way. And that resulted in the IT sector growing from $15 million of exports in 95 to $8 billion for that one state last year. And it generated 300,000 jobs. And at one point, I remember when we were trying to meet Bill Gates and trying to attract Microsoft to Hyderabad, there were articles and there were editorials in the press saying that we have gone bonkers. That was what they felt, because there was no power in the state, you don't have the money, and how will you attract top companies like Microsoft? But when we look back, today, the biggest software development center of Microsoft outside of Redmond is actually in Hyderabad. So the whole profile has changed. So I feel that there is an opportunity in the ICT sector for developing countries to leapfrog, to actually not be bound by models which developed countries have followed, because the technology itself is changing so rapidly and is opening up space for developing countries so that they can be ambitious and think big time in terms of leapfrogging. I see some leapfrog opportunities for Afghanistan, for example. Now, one area which is creating jobs is virtualization of work. So earlier, what was happening is that we had this ITS and the BPO boom, where large companies set up call centers, for example. But now that model is changing, and it is getting more decentralized. So which means that you can be at your home, and you can actually deliver work online, and you can also be part of a call center, just like JetBlue does. So this is a very decentralized approach to creating employment, and this employment can range from very low-level and low-skill jobs to very sophisticated and high-level jobs. So at the low level, just to give another example, Amazon just the other day came out with a new phone called the Fire phone. The defining feature of that phone is that it has 4 cameras on the front, and as you move the phone, it actually tracks your eyes and your face and is able to change the image so that you get a 3D perspective on that phone. Now, to be able to develop that algorithm for moving the phone and being able to capture your face, what actually went into this was that hundreds of thousands of photographs, images, were deployed on the net for people to identify what are the eyes, where is the nose, and that information, which is humanly recognized and very low scale, was used to develop those sophisticated algorithms which eventually went into that product. So I'm just demonstrating a very low level of skills which can also help people participate in the digital economy in a way which was not possible before. And this is just the beginning, because countries like Bangladesh, 20% of their exports today on IT are actually from virtualization of work, or what they call as micro work. So that's one opportunity which I feel Afghanistan definitely has. The second opportunity in terms of leapfrog is in terms of decentralized manufacture. Now, in Arlington itself, we have a tech shop. There are fab labs which are coming across the world, which reduce the investment required to enter into manufacturing. So today, if you look at ear shells of hearing aids, 90% of those shells are 3D printed. So if you look at GE engines, very sophisticated, 40% of GE engines will be 3D printed. So this is an opportunity which reduces the entry barrier and can use and leverage the existing IT infrastructure to get into areas which provide you with leapfrog opportunities. So that's another area I just wanted to briefly mention. The last is, just taking off on what Ms. Burr was mentioning about regional connectivity. We feel that there's a clear opportunity for Afghanistan to become a hub as a connector, say, from Pakistan to Tajikistan and to Central Asia, where there is a distinct requirement for regional networks, and that is something which is a clear opportunity for Afghanistan. So with these words, I know my time is up, so thank you very much.
That was very exciting. Thank you, Randeep. And David Bailey from USAID.
Mr. Sangin, distinguished guests. My name is David Bailey. I am Senior Private Sector Engagement Advisor in the Office of Afghanistan-Pakistan Affairs. In the interest of time, I will focus on a core ICT activity for USAID in Afghanistan, which is mobile money. Next slide. And next slide. USAID, in its focus on helping build a robust ICT sector in Afghanistan, is really focusing on the private sector as far as investment is concerned and capacity building within the ministry. Building capacity to deliver ICT services where it can be used most effectively, and developing a legal framework and market infrastructure, along with working with partner institutions to provide tailored ICT solutions. In integrating all of these, we are working with and focusing on how we can integrate women into the ICT business components. Here you see the penetration of leveraging the mobile network in Afghanistan, where you see the red is the network penetration, and the white dots represent the banking infrastructure, and where the rural areas are woefully underserved with regard to banking infrastructure, where mobile money can make its most impact. Here you see the regional penetration of the network in Afghanistan. Rural populations have very limited access to banks and financial institutions, and as such, a key objective of Mobile Money Initiative is to increase the financial access to the unbanked and unserved and underserved markets in Afghanistan. Mobile money to become part of the everyday life of Afghanistan's citizens and increase the supervision and regulatory role of agencies to better roll out mobile money transactions and enable an environment to achieve interoperability and connectivity of various mobile money payment systems of different mobile operators and banking institutions and other payment providers. Here, our focus areas are, again, looking at regulatory reform, mobile money operators, and innovation grants. And those innovation grants have helped AACC fund biometric registration, Etisalat electricity payments with women agents, and Roshan in looking at microloan disbursements. USAID is helping form and register the Association of Mobile Money Operators in Afghanistan. And in doing this, we have conducted a series of workshops with the MNOs to include mobile money business models, strategy formulation, agent network development, technical review of systems and platforms, and regulatory requirements. The association now is being registered in Afghanistan at the Ministry of Justice. It has 4 board members, which include 1 representative each of the mobile network operators. USAID, working through its financial access for investing in the development of Afghanistan program, is facilitating the following applications. Through Roshan grants, the loan disbursements and repayments take place through an MFI that we are working with to better increase the transparency of the microloan program and its efficiencies. Number 2, money transfers taking place through all of the carriers at the current time. Bill payments are processed through Etisalat and Pashtuni banks. Merchant payments are taking place through AACC and the World Food Program. And tuition fees are paid through mobile money at Afghanistan Institute of Banking and Finance. And teachers in Afghanistan National Police are working with ACC staff are receiving salaries through mobile money banking. And all MNO customers are using the airtime to top up the cell services. Again, working through the FIDA program, USAID helped facilitate ICT-related activities that include the Roshan M-Pesa system, which is working with the MFI program, Etisalat on electricity payments in Kabul, Etisalat again on Women's Garden Gender Program in Kabul, and AWC on biometric registration in Kabul. Roshan has registered 3,000 MFI customers using mobile money in its Kabul offices. Etisalat registered more than 10,000 customers for electricity bill payments through its mobile system. And Etisalat recently trained 1,500 women to become mobile money agents. And AWCC had registered more than 1,000 employees of different private organizations to pay salaries via mobile money, also recruited 200 agents and merchants in Kabul to provide mobile money services. And this is an example with regard to working with high schools, working with the Ministry of Education in paying high school teachers through mobile money activities. Lessons learned. This has been very important with regard to as we roll out these services to the various both public and private sector organizations in Afghanistan. Better coordination with the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Finance, and MNOs, school officials, and partner banks. We need to resolve commercial terms up front. A series of briefing sessions need to be coordinated with the teachers. Mobile money agents need to be represented during the briefing sessions, and mobile money menus should be in Dari and Pashtun. And transaction fees should not be passed on to the teachers. Another activity includes the 300 women interns that are working with the Afghan Institute of Banking and Finance, and how we have worked with them to educate them on the uses of mobile money. Again, lessons learned, effective briefing sessions to target group audiences, concerns around trust of mobile money systems, concerns on transactions, fees, concerns on easier use and functionalities, concerns on agent locations, concerns on security, lack of presence of mobile money agents at premises, and existence of hotline services in case of customer inquiries. Again, looking at all of these and see how we can perform the services better. Next steps. Increase interoperability between banks and the mobile network operators. Start implementing white label agent networks, and add to scale of pilot projects such as the teacher salary payments, the electricity payments, and the microfinance loans. Strengthen the association of mobile money operators, and continue branchless banking activities, and carrying on better than cash initiatives. And I call into focus Minister Sangin's comments with regard to the business processing outsources in India. I conducted a study for the World Bank in 2006 on the competitiveness of the business process outsourcing industry in India as well as in Bhutan. And I can say with a great deal of interest that there is the opportunities in Afghanistan going forward to create this a BPO type of industry in Afghanistan. We just need to focus really on increasing the education of and developing the talent through the college and university system there, and do a better job in focusing on high-end ICT applications. Thank you.
All right, so our planning now is to invite the minister up if he's got any comments he'd like to make based on the opening comments of our panel. If not, then we'll go to Q&A, or he can jump in with questions, whichever he'd prefer. Mr. Minister, would you like to make any comments based on the presentations, or?
Well, I don't have many comments.
Okay. Come on up to the podium. I think it'll be better.
I just want to say that World Bank, USAID, ADB, and of course US Trade. This previously there was something called USTDA. Is that the same? It's different. It's different. Okay. Okay. So in JICA, as I mentioned in my introduction, the 10-year progress, all this has been made possible with the support of international community. And I think these 5 which are present here today, they have played a very major role in Afghanistan. So I wish to thank them on behalf of the Afghan government and the Afghan people. And I think I got some ideas about what they are saying. Just one comment is about the infrastructure sharing. In fact, as Mr. Tumiwa from ADB mentioned about their work in the transmission network, building the transmission for the electricity. In fact, we have finalized agreement with this transmission company. The state telecom company, Afghan Telecom, has made an agreement. And maybe yesterday or today or tomorrow, we will be using their optical fiber as a backup to our underground cable, so to increase the security of the network. So that's been done actually. So, and of course, in case of the World Bank, I think I would like to mention that we have a very close cooperation with the World Bank. We had a project in the beginning in 2002 worth 20 million. very useful project because at that time there was nothing, and it came as an emergency communication system. And today we are working together on this 50 million project. And I think one component which was not mentioned, I would like to mention that this project actually will even include an innovation grant, a grant they've given, we call it an innovation program. This is, we are announcing competition to the Afghan youth to come up with certain software solutions that can be used in Afghanistan to address certain government problems or maybe any other problem. And I think that money, we hope by using that money, we will have certain new solutions coming from Afghanistan from that project. So I don't want to talk more about all this. I think we should open the floor for
Okay, very good.
Questions, for any questions.
I know the administrator will be very happy to hear your comments about the innovation grants because this is an area he believes in strongly at USAID. So why don't we open it up to the floor? We don't have an extra mic, so what I'll do is once you've asked your question, I'll just try to repeat it quickly for everyone and so that the recording cameras can pick that up as well. When you stand up to offer your question, just give us your name and your organization. Yeah, it's, yeah, why don't you, you can relax then. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, I hope that I am still the new minister there. Yeah. But of course, one cannot be sure. So I will be happy to work as his advisor. Also, I don't mind. My main objective is to serve my country and to work for Afghanistan. And I am happy to work in any capacity possible. So even if I'm not a minister, I'll be very happy to give the best advice I can to the new minister. And I think what I would like to say is that a good foundation has been laid, as you can see here. So when the new minister comes, even we have a plan for the future, and we will be sharing that plan for the future with him. And what I would also like to say is that, as I said, the whole progress that has been made in this sector is a teamwork. So the deputy ministers, the directors, they're all there. So the new minister will not be alone. He will have that whole team behind him, and I'm sure this good work will continue. And I see only positive on the future for Afghanistan in the ICT sector. Yes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, over here.
Also, thank you to the esteemed panelists for your comments and presentations. Throughout your presentation, sir, you talked a lot about all of the gains that were made over the last decade plus in Afghanistan with regards to the ICT sector. And you also talked about, towards the end of your presentation, security concerns and the implications that those security concerns have on developing the sector even further in Afghanistan. With the changing dynamic of security in the next few years, with the reduction of international presence, can you talk a little bit about any strategies that your ministry has to kind of mitigate some of these concerns with security, and additionally, if there are any strategies to work with other ministries to help mitigate some of these concerns? Thank you.
Yes, as I mentioned in my presentation, security is a very important issue, and this is actually the main challenge. Remember that map I presented to you on the optical fiber? So that project started 5 years ago, and the north of the country where the security issues are less was actually completed and became operational within the first 2 years. The south, some portions of this network are not even operational, not even today. And this you can see is the impact of the security on our projects. And I can also tell you that implementing this optical fiber project, tens of people have lost their life. This is actually on each sector, people dies, the contractors which are implementing the project. Attacks are being made on them, and actually every month, every 2-3 months, we hear that 2-3 people died here or there. So many people lost their lives actually. But still we are determined to continue and to implement what we think is important for our country. Regarding future, as you mentioned, well, I think the important thing is that we are feeling that Afghanistan security forces hopefully will be able to cope with the security situation. My personal belief is that for our security forces to be able to cope with the challenge, I think even though the foreign troops are leaving Afghanistan, but we will still need the foreign support in terms of maybe certain training, but particularly in terms of financially. One concern I have is that our security forces are costing a lot of money. I think the cost is estimated to be $4 billion per year to run our army and the police. $4 billion a year. In today, Afghanistan's revenues are $2 billion. And so that's the question. There is a big gap in the budget for the security forces alone. And when you add to that the government and all the other, the requirement annually is $7 billion. Revenues being $2 billion, and requirement for the government to operate and run is $7 billion. So my main concern is, are we going to continue to get this $5 billion deficit in the financial support that we have, that we need? And if we do get that, then I think the Afghan security forces should be fairly capable to cope with the situation. But if we don't get this, then there is risk, because without this money, how can we expect the security forces to perform? But of course, this is only for a certain period of time. And I think if the new government takes steps to improve the development of the country, and we have several similar development in other sectors, like agriculture, like mining, like energy, like industry, and there's so much to be done in Afghanistan. So we can very quickly increase the government revenues. And that, I think that should be the objective for the new government, to make sure that they do whatever possible to make Afghanistan self-sufficient, because I think that is the very important objective. I don't like this situation that after 12 years, we have such a big gap in our revenue in what we need. And I think this is, if you think, one of the failure of the last 12 years, I would consider this a failure. My hope was that within 12 years, Afghanistan should be able to stand on its own feet. But unfortunately, we are not standing on our own feet. We still need good support. That some of the donors are here, I think they will agree with me with what I'm saying. But I think governments, especially the US government and others, I think they all have a role to play in this. In my feeling is that if we don't do that, let's say we don't do that and we fail, who loses more? I think the international community loses more. The Afghan people, they are used to to live in poor conditions. They've been living in poor conditions for ages, for centuries. Okay, so what will happen? It will be back to the old situation. No schools, no education, no health service. But I think they still don't have, even today they don't have much electricity. I think you mentioned 14%. So okay, they can be in the dark and have a lamp, huh? But what happens to these international big countries like US, EU, Japan, Korea and all? People will ask them question. You were in Afghanistan for 12 years. You spent billions and trillions of dollars. You sacrificed so many of your lives. What did you get? Is this what you wanted? So I think we have a common objective, and that is to make sure Afghanistan don't fail, to make sure that the risk, what you're talking about, never comes. And I think our soldiers are brave. They want to defend the country, and they want to do a good job. But they need the means to do it. And that means is the responsibility of the international community to give to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. That was awesome response.